Wow, wow, wow. That was 2 hours of massive intensity and loving Michael Jordan for me, at least. And I know Worldwide Wob, I know Matt Moore, I know Justin Fan are going to have very different opinions than I have about my love for Michael Jordan right now.
You're not biased at all, Chad. The Bulls pennant's behind you. The All-Star game, the Bulls hat on. This is not as pro of a Michael Jordan Periscope as you're leading the audience to believe.
This is going to be, from my perspective, a very pro Michael Jordan Periscope. Because I will tell you, we talked about this last week on the show. Like, I liked him less after some of the stuff last week where I felt like, as a huge Michael Jordan obsessive fan growing up and watching that team in real time, loving him because I thought he played with joy and that competitive fire. And over the past couple episodes, I've thought he was really about anger. This was all about competitive fire, and I had an entirely different take, and we're going to get to that. But first, right before we came on the air, Wob, you tweeted out, and this is like what an epic 2 episodes this was, because you tweeted out right before we came on the air, the 7 different people who took L's in these 2 episodes, starting with the glove, Gary Payton, LeBradford Smith, MJ's waiter after George Karl walked by, Jordan retired because of the gambling stuff theorists, the Orlando Magic for changing those jerseys, Pippen, the moment Kukoc shot went in, and then Craig Sager. Like, the breadth of ground that we covered with all of those things is amazing. It was these 2 episodes were amazing. Wob, kick us off with that tweet and then your take on the 2 episodes.
Sure, there's those 7 things, but there's only 280 characters allowed on Twitter, so I had to leave out Scott Burrell and every Knicks fan on planet Earth. We had LeBron James in the middle of this damn documentary tweet out that, oh man, I love playing, God bless Madison Square Garden or whatever the hell he's. Are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me. Like, during this has nothing to do with you, first of all, and it has nothing to do with Knicks fans. And you got to come out and say, man, do I love Madison Square Garden. He does this once a year. He put out an Instagram post with him standing on the logo. He just has to continue to rub it in our faces that we missed out on him so many times because of Dolan and Phil Jackson. I'm a little bit on tilt here, but then it's nothing to do with The Last Dance. So let me pivot back to the actual documentary that we just watched. That was a low blow, even though he didn't mean it. He had Scott Burrell out there during practice who, first of all, imagine getting crossed up by someone named Judd. Second of all, MJ's on the ground laughing, saying, you can't even guard Judd in the first place. And then they cut to a scene from practice in which Jordan is sitting there like bored. Like, you got to be kidding me that you're trying to post me up. He's standing there slouched like this, and then he just waits for him to turn around and just blocks that shit. Like it was nothing. Those didn't even make the list in the first place. So to be honest, this was supposed to be the episode that Michael Jordan was scared that we're not going to like him. Like, everyone's going to turn their opinion on him and think he's a bad guy. What did I just watch that made him look bad? I mean, I saw a man compassionate about his father's murder, all of the press and media that went down after it. There's nothing, there was little for me that in comparison to what I think Matt Moore is about to come off and say, why he likes Jordan even less. So please take the floor from me, because I can almost respect him more for being honest and transparent in those last 15 seconds of the first episode, where he's saying, if you call me a tyrant, it's because you never won anything. That's just facts, Matt.
Dude, listen, I don't even know if I want Matt Moore to talk in this episode, because he's so wrong in this take. Not only where Jordan is talking about being a tyrant, and to me, everything he did, I felt like genuinely was not because he was a tyrant, because he wanted to bring these guys along and knew that he needed them. Oh my God, Matt Moore, do not give me that look.
Well, first of all,
do not give me that look.
Chat. First of all, you have to address the fact that Matt is wearing a strength and number shirt right now. So he's trolling. The Warriors win one more game in the finals. This episode is completely different because the Chicago Bulls are not the greatest team of all time. That would belong to the 2016 Golden State Warriors. So I don't think you can just get away with wearing a strength and number shirt on this telecast without having to explain yourself.
But you know what? Justin Fan, what's your take on this?
I want to hear Matt defend it, then I want to come in on Matt. That's the order that I want. I mean, we saw him be tough on his teammates, and his teammates retroactively came to his defense too. You saw BJ Armstrong say, with that type of mentality he had, he couldn't be nice. You saw Will Perdue say, yeah, he was a hell of a teammate. You saw Steve Kerr talk about his incident with MJ and how that made them closer ultimately, and he was happy that it happened. So if all his teammates are fine with, his methods and how tough he was on them, and how that whole approach made them better and made them win championships, then I don't understand this backlash that we're going to get from that on why Jordan comes off, as a bad guy here. I don't understand it.
Let me bump set Spike before he comes in here and say that we can all agree that the Chicago Bulls dynasty was boiler room. It was cannibalism in a sense of basketball. Okay. Every man for himself, just a complete, utter toxic atmosphere. You have Jerry Krause, who, if he was, we spoke about this last week, but if he was alive to this day, he would go right in front of the camera and say, I pissed off Michael Jordan on purpose because I knew that his maximum potential, that's what he needed. He was poisoning the well by not paying Scotty, pissing off Michael, pissing him off on the plane. Michael Jordan's knocking out his teammates. He's saying, shoot a layup, you asshole, to his face. He's demoralizing Judd Buechler, who's catching strays for absolutely no reason. It's this toxic atmosphere, which actually worked. But it was a toxic atmosphere. Okay, some people would thrive in that situation, some would not. And those that did not got the hell out of there, whether it was their choice or not. But let's just state the facts that, yes, for 10 years, this seems like the most toxic environment to play the game of basketball.
All right, let's let Matt Moore give his very bad take on this topic.
So the question is, do you have to do that? And there's also a very key differential here, okay? I learned this a long time ago dealing with people in my career and in my life. There's two different types. There's nice and there's good. Now, the idea here being presented is building a straw man. He wasn't nice because you want nice, and he wasn't nice because he was tough, and that's how he brought these guys up. If you listen carefully to their comments, these are not guys that are like, we absolutely would not have won the other way. What they said was, this is how he was, and this is how we won. And that's different. And he also didn't just say, like, he wasn't nice. He was an asshole. He was abusive. Like, all of these things tie together in such a way where it's like, we're not talking about nice. We're talking about good. Was he good to his teammates? Did he have Steve Kerr's number? No, he didn't. He had to go to the facility to get Steve Kerr's number. Didn't have his teammates' number. Doesn't care about any of them. They don't matter to him, because the key in this is that he tore them down to build them up. But not once do you hear any stories about Jordan called me when I was down and got me through something. Not, I had a bad game, Jordan told me to pick it up and we'd be all right. Not once, not a single time does that ever happen. He won. Now, in the end, he says, you only say that because you've never won anything. And I'm fine with that. Like, that as a criticism is fine, except for the fact that you then have to be able to say to me that nobody else in the history of the NBA has ever touched greatness without being a selfish, self-centered, abusive human being to everybody around him except for his family. Like, you have to be able to prove that, and you can't, because we've got Magic Johnson, and we've got Tim Duncan, and we've got Hakeem Olajuwon, and we've got LeBron James. We have all these people that did not do what he did. And I'm willing to accept that at that level of competition, it does take a mean streak and a ruthlessness, which is going to make people uncomfortable. But it's the fact that that's what defined him, and it was never cyclical. It was never, I'm going to be abusive, I'm going to tear you down, but I'm also going to do X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z, you never hear about. And they won because Jordan is the greatest player of all time. He's not the greatest player of all time because he was a tyrant and abusive. That lifted him to his individual heights. He was that, and that justifies all of this behavior.
Okay, let me interject real quick, because sounds like, and nothing that you said, honestly, I disagree with or I find incorrect. I will say that it sure echoes conversations that we have today of, are you okay with your kids having participation trophies? Like, good job, you'll get first someday. Or are you from the school of tough love? And again, there is no right or wrong answer here, but Michael Jordan is clearly from the school of tough love. He does not, like you said, does not care about his teammates, even to the point that he didn't have their phone numbers. In 1997, I don't know who had whose phone number in their pocket in 1997 because we didn't have cell phones, but that's neither nor. I think your point still stands that he would have to go out of his way to be complimentary or emotional with someone on the side. But it worked in the end. So does it working equal it was right? I think Matt would say no. I think some other people would say yes. And I think that's the debate that we're going to have for the rest of time. Is winning all, okay? Or do you need to win the right way? And if your answer to that is yes, you have to win the right way, then you have to explain yourself and give a definition of what is right, because then you're just talking out of pocket.
Fan, you want to respond?
Well, I agree with Wad that I don't think Matt was out of pocket with anything he said, but when you have Jordan, when he's the best player in the team, when he's the best player in the league, when you have him as your star player, that other stuff comes with it. And that leadership style is something that you have to deal with within the confines of your team. And your teammates have to either tag along and get with the program, or they're out of there and they don't survive. So, I don't think that there's necessarily a right, correct method, a leadership style, whether it be Jordan, whether it be Tim Duncan. But I do agree Jordan was very upfront about his style, what he demanded from his teammates, and his teammates said that he didn't expect anything from them that he didn't do himself. So he was accountable for his, for his portion of it. He worked his ass off. He never took days off, and he was at the head of it. And he held his teammates to the same standard. And whether that's correct, whether that's the right way, is debatable, but it's just who he was.
Okay. So before Justin said it, I was going to respond to his testimony with who was the last great NBA player to be the antithesis of Michael Jordan, to build a dynasty, not just win a title, but build a dynasty. And the clear and obvious answer is Tim Duncan, someone that was incredibly soft-spoken. At least we weren't there in the locker room with him, but from what we saw on TV versus behind the scenes stuff, Tim Duncan seemed to be just a very buttoned up, even though he didn't wear button-ups that often, very buttoned up, come to work, you do your job, you be respectful of other people because I want to be treated with the same respect. That's the vibe I got from Tim Duncan. Does that make his championships better or greater than Michael Jordan's? No, absolutely not. They were just done in different ways. But then I was going to contradict myself if Justin didn't say that and say the reason why Tim Duncan was able to be that way with the Spurs is because Greg Popovich assumed the role of Michael Jordan tough love. They all loved him in the end, right? But Greg Popovich is the epitome, the embodiment of tough love to us. You don't think so, Matt? You're giving me a face. I think Greg Popovich very much behind the scenes is a lot harder on his guys than he is on camera, which carries a lot more value, at least with me. But he had the shield of Greg Popovich there. So it is my personal opinion that you have to find some sort of competitive balance here with the Tim Duncans and the Michael Jordans. And the Bulls had that in Scottie Pippen. They talked about it last week on episode 6, I believe, when Jordan went to go play baseball. This was Scottie's team, and everyone was looking to Scottie to be this super killer Michael Jordan. Scottie Pippen comes on the camera and says, I'm not that guy. I am not that guy. He's just quiet. He's there to do his job very similarly to Tim Duncan. They didn't have that presence. We went back to being a team unit. And do you want to point that to the reason why that's why they didn't win the title? Well, they were missing Michael Jordan, so we could have this argument forever. But in my opinion, there has always been throughout time an absolute killer and then someone that can balance them out. And the teams that are dynasties have a balance of some kind. And the Bulls absolutely did with Pippen.
I'll also add that the eras had a lot to do with this too, because you saw in that Detroit series where they got their ass kicked. They were out physical. They were mentally weaker, and you just had to be tested. You just couldn't go in these playoff series with these ultra physical teams and just not be there, not be prepared. And Steve Kerr said it. He said, if you can't handle the pressure from Jordan, then you can't handle the pressure of the NBA playoffs. And I think that is totally correct. Like you saw the first time they played the Bad Boys, they were not equipped physically and mentally. And then you transition where Jordan's getting pushed by Rodman and he doesn't react at all. That's the shift in the mentality of the team that I think Jordan was largely responsible for. And that was specific to that era that, if you were a Tim Duncan, if you had a soft-spoken, I don't think that probably would have translated as well in that time.
So go back to Matt with this then, because the point that you brought up with the summer of 1990, when they get beat by the Pistons for the final time, Michael Jordan says, enough of this shit. I'm going to the weight room for the entire summer to beef up and practice. Not a single one of you are going on vacation. We're all going into the gym so that when we're here again next summer, we're going to be prepared for that. Okay. So is that when it happened to Michael Jordan that he just like got unleashed in full? Because at that point he had been in the league for 6 years. Where was the super killer Michael Jordan then? It existed, but was it unleashed is what I would like to propose to the group.
All right. Well, I have a thought on this. There's a couple things. I don't think it is you are Tim Duncan and you appreciate that kind of leadership, or you are Michael Jordan and you appreciate that kind of leadership. The third option is, do you come out of this loving Michael Jordan more because of the way he presents himself? And I'm finding him to be unbelievably candid in his answers and in his responses and in his framing of all of these events. I found him to be unbelievably candid when he talked about coming back in that first game against the Pacers. He said, I felt naked. I was scared. I was nervous. He had not had that kind of feeling playing without his dad before. I find him to be very compelling when he is talking about being a tyrant and trying to get his teammates to understand what he is trying to get to. Wob, I do think that he got to a point in 1990. It's a great point that you bring up. He's like, I am not going to go down as George Gervin. I am going to need to have other guys around me, and they are not getting there. And if I can't get them there just by being great on the court, I am going to have to get them there by making them feel as passionately about winning as I do. And they're going to have to feel bad about it. They are going to have to suffer with me. Okay. And Matt Moore, I don't know how you cannot see that.
Okay, Chad, hold on a second. Hold on. Sorry, Matt. Chad, answer this question. Who has a production credit on this documentary? Who, the very last screen you see? What's the name of the production company?
It's Michael Jordan.
Mandalay Bay Sports. So your premise there, while I actually do kind of agree with you that I appreciate his authenticity and all the rumors, I believe even more now through this. Let's not forget that this is a very carefully tailored documentary to make Michael Jordan look good. He has the final say. And you see that on the damn credit screen.
Totally agree.
So he's trying to push that narrative to you that, yeah, I was a dickhead, but I was authentic about it. And you see nothing else. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
And you know what, by the way, before Matt gets to go, I know it. I'm a sucker for it. I'm buying 100%. I am all in. I want to believe. All right.
I appreciate your candidness, I guess, is what I could say there. For Chad, that I appreciate your candor in that. Look, this is a lot of this is like, I have never been this person that I have people in my life that are extremely candid and they say like, well, no matter what you think about it, I'm honest. I'm like, yeah, but you're also an asshole. Like you're honest. You're honestly an asshole. And that's like how I feel throughout this. And like, there's stuff in here, but like, yeah, but what about the stuff with his dad? And I'm like, look, he's a human being and he suffered. And I'm not denying that he suffered. And that's very real. And I have empathy for him as somebody who suffered. But there's also a reason why chronologically it works, but it also presents that and then carries into this because it softens the blow a little bit. Like it does. Like you're all like, oh man, that must have been really hard on him. And like the media was after him. I'm like, okay, sure. He was an asshole to Scott Burrell, but I don't care about Scott Burrell. I care about Michael Jordan because he made the shooty hoops. And it's like, look, at the end of this, what you were talking about, Chad, is that it's like, okay, I'm not going to lose and I'm not going down. And so you're going to have to get on my level. Think about this. Me, not us. Not we got to win. Not we got to do this together. Not I got to do what I can to get Scotty better, to get Horace better, to get Paxson better, to get Judd better, to get Kerr better. It's me. It's all about me and about my need to beat everyone else, to fulfill some sort of really damaged part of him that has that drive in him even to this day. Like, look, a lot of this would be different if in retrospect we had other instances of like, so-and-so, like if there were all these aggregation posts of so-and-so tells story of Jordan's remarkable kindness. We don't have that. If it was at his induction ceremony, that was the opportunity for him to be like, I love this game. It gave so much to me. Thank you so much. And you know what Jordan did? He went in there and he was like, you were wrong. You tried to beat me and I beat you. I beat you. I beat you. And it was all he did. This is his entire ethos. And a lot of this comes across as like, and we've seen this periodically with Jordan. Look, he has more money than God. Like, he has more money than God. And he has 6 titles and the title is the greatest player of all time. So along those goals, I'm sure he's pretty happy. But I genuinely wonder about how happy a human being can be if this is the way their entire life is structured. And so, like, that's what I wanted walking away with. This is like, man, he brought a lot of happiness for folks like Chad. What else did he bring?
Look, I want to interject here. So, I mean, you have these kind of heart-to-heart, kind of compassion stories with Tim Duncan, right? Like Manu told the story where he missed a big shot, or he messed up a big play. He went to his hotel room. He like unplugged all the phone lines or whatever. And Timmy, found the last phone line and took him out to dinner. They had a great talk and they had a heart to heart. And Manu felt immediately better the next game and right after that, right? I want to counter though. Do you not agree though that Jordan made his teammates better? He unlocked a whole level of Pippen, in my opinion. He made a lot of those guys, Steve Kerr, John Paxson, the rest of them mentally tougher, more equipped to deal with high leverage, pressure situations in the playoffs. Do you not agree with that aspect at least?
I guess I don't, based off of the fact that, like, I've seen Harrison Barnes hit big shots in the finals. Like, I've seen Draymond Green hit threes in the finals. I've seen guys hit big shots in the finals. I've seen a lot of players come through. These are the best players on the planet. Like, these are the best players in the world. Like, those guys didn't need that to get there. Steve Kerr is not a scrub who's out on the street. If not Judd Bugle, none of those guys. None of those guys. Not Scott Burrell. Nobody. They didn't need it. It was what they had. And it was how they got there. And like Wobb's original point about you can take multiple paths, I think is correct. Like, we keep going back to Duncan, but let's be really clear on this. LeBron, as we talked about on earlier episodes on this show, LeBron's a team guy. He's not a coach guy, but he's definitely a team guy. And while he's very selective in who he chooses to earn that trust, once you earn that trust, like LeBron trusts you over and over and over again. And like guys have said, like, I love being teammates with LeBron. And there's a lot of that LeBron's hard on dudes. And if you screw up, like, LeBron's not passing to you. He's going to freeze you out for a long time. But it doesn't have to be this way. This is not a better way. This is not even a superior way overall. It's just something that worked because of Jordan's individual talent, which was so incredible. Like, a lot of this lends itself, in my opinion, to the idea that this is more about Jordan's talent. We attach these ideas to him about, well, it was this and that made everybody better because we want to justify the end result, when it was like, no, like, he was the greatest individual player of all time and brought his teams up because of that ability. And those guys did their job despite this work environment that they operated in constantly, in part because Phil Jackson helped get them through. I'm not a big Phil Jackson guy, but his role in this is pivotal in like maintaining that balance of guys never getting too up or too down.
Well, using the LeBron comparison that he's a team guy or he's a player's guy, he's not a coach guy, I see as the exact equivalent of Jordan being a coach guy and not a team guy, because LeBron is as vicious with his coaches as Jordan was with his teammates. So I don't know if there's any LeBron stands, whatever they call you nowadays, out there. You can't say, well, Jordan was a dickhead to every player on his team. I would argue that LeBron is equally as much of a dickhead to someone that counts just as much on the team and is part of the chemistry. So I don't even think you were trying to include that in your argument that this makes LeBron better, but it certainly makes LeBron different in the way that he angles his target. His bullseye is on a different fraction of the team, a different fraction of the locker room. Again, that doesn't make it better. I think it's just the difference between the two.
No, I totally agree. I'm with you on that.
But I actually think, and we've talked about this with Jordan before, this is a generational thing. This is a Jordan growing up in an age where coaches are everything, playing for Dean Smith. We saw it when he talked about Doug Collins, and then we saw it when he decided he was going to retire instead of play for anyone other than Phil Jackson. And the way he would talk to coaches, saying to Doug Collins, or I'm not going to let you lose your first game, right? Like, he revered coaches. He revered authority. He was very close to his parents. LeBron came up in a different age, right? LeBron came up where his closest friends, he has made a very big point about his family were those 5 players that he played with in high school. And those are the guys who have been with him forever. And he has created camaraderie and created a community and created a family out of every team he's been on. Forget about the coaches. It's like, guys, this is going to be about us. And there is a selfishness to that that is equivalent to everything Jordan does in the way he acts like an asshole. You can't say that one is better than the other. You can't say that Duncan's way is better than Jordan's way. You can't say that Jordan's way is better than another way. And Matt, you're right. Like, part of this is because he's an undeniable talent, but also I think from that undeniable talent is born incredible frustration when he knows that he's going to need other people to help him. How is he going to get him there? That was just his way. And I have no problem with it. I know you said in our Slack, like, what happens to good people when they're reacting like to certain ways. I'll take that as a compliment. You're saying I'm a good guy, but I have no problem with the way he did it. And I love him even more for it. And here's what's interesting about this particular angle and this discussion. Potentially the most insubordinate, petulant move in the history of sports is Scottie Pippen refusing to go in with 1.4 seconds left in a playoff game because he wasn't going to get the shot. And we haven't even discussed that yet because Michael Jordan's ability to dominate is so all-encompassing.
Well, I will say that, I guess, just to wrap up this topic, that we're talking about Jordan. He targeted his players, but loved the coaches. LeBron hates the coaches, but loves his players. We have a current example going on today in 2020 where a generational superstar, because it's just Jordan, it's just LeBron, who's next. I would argue that Giannis Antetokounmpo right now is overly supportive of both his coaches and his players to the point that it could be detrimental to his own team. He was out here practically crying that they fired Jason Kidd because he loved him so much. Do you understand? Jason Kidd is the reason why you didn't make the damn conference finals that year. The guy has no clue, but you stand up for him in that way. So is this like not babying, but like overwhelming support as opposed to being bloodlust or just just being vicious with one fraction of your team? Does it work? And Giannis is going to be the example of that. We won't get an answer for some time, but I believe him to be the guy of just like all about the team. And I will support you no matter what you do. Let's see if it works.
I want to see if there's a shift in Giannis over time when he keeps losing, when they keep coming short in the playoffs, where this switch, this evolution comes. With Jordan losing to the Pistons, that switch comes where you're like, I'm so sick of losing. I'm the best player in the league. I should be winning and contending for titles every year. I'm over this. I'm tough. I'm done being the nice guy. I'm going to be on you and hold you accountable and be a little bit more, in your face, not to a Jordan level, but maybe more so than Giannis has been, where he's just, trying to please everybody. And, in the end, we've seen to this point where it hasn't translated into playoff success. And I wonder if that changes over time.
Well, a couple of things. One, they made the conference finals last year, and I hate when we act like nobody's won.
They were the best team. They've been the best team record-wise. They should be getting there.
I understand, but like, I only when we say that they haven't won anything, when it's like, all right, they haven't won the title. Be specific. Second, so like Giannis is actually a really good example of what I think is a good balance. Giannis is vicious to the other team. Like he's nasty. He will fight. He will trash talk. He is nasty to the other team. He's supportive of his own guys, and he sets an example. All the stuff about like, he never asked us to do anything he wouldn't do. Giannis is the biggest gym rat. Like, he is the biggest gym rat in Milwaukee. He's the guy that's in there every day doing the most work all the time, setting that example. So I think it's possible. And like, I think it probably will evolve. Most guys do evolve and start understanding like, look, this business is about, I get yours. Like, you have to get yours. I don't agree though with fans' assertion that like 90s switched something for him. I don't think that. I think Jordan was always like that. I think the first couple of years were about him building his own personal ability and his own personal, like, he built the shoe brand and he built his MVP stature. And then it came to like very quickly, like 6 years in, he's already like, no, like, I'm done with this. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the books that you read about it that like he was like this from the very start. So I think that's all in there. I do want to talk about, Chad's brought up Pippen, and I think it's worth talking about because I just kept thinking like, what's that moment like on Twitter in 2020? If a player, let's say hypothetically a player that plays for like, I don't know, let's pick like a random franchise, like the Brooklyn Nets. And there's like a player on the Brooklyn Nets that like plays, I don't know, like a guard. There's like a guard on the Brooklyn Nets. And that guy is so upset that he's not getting the ball in the final situation that he does not go in. Like the absolute mayhem that would unleash upon social media, reverberate through Facebook, through Twitter, through Tumblr, through MySpace, through everything would be insane. Like I cannot grasp what it would have been like to be like, wait, why is Pippen not, he's not going, what do you mean he's not going in? The insanity of that night, I was just thinking about constantly what that would be like in 2020.
Well, even now, like forget about, I'm going to reframe your question because Scottie Pippen not going in, and we will discuss a little bit about this, me being significantly older than everybody on this call and being in New York, living in New York for that series and watching that game. I was just watching The Last Dance with my wife, who we were just dating at the time. And we watched that game in her apartment on 85th and 2nd that night. And watching him do that, I can't think of a moment where a superstar player, this is a top 50 player of all time in the NBA, sits out the last second, says to his coach, I'm not going in. That is unfathomable. Unfathomable. Wab.
I just want to ask a quick question for Chad here. When it was happening, was there any like question or uncertainty about if he was hurt or if anything was going on, or was it immediately clear that he was just sitting out by choice?
Oh no, everybody actually thought it was Phil Jackson's choice. Everyone thought it was Phil Jackson had decided he's going to bench Scottie Pippen as if it was like some ninja move, right? Like he was like the maestro and the coach who had all the answers. And so the answer to deceive the Knicks in that moment was sit Scottie Pippen. And like, then it came out that it was Scottie who decided to sit himself. And that was just like all the more stunning.
Okay. So he said after they showed us that moment in the interview, when asked, would you do it again? He said, I would. So he's not sorry about it. He's the guy who still has beef with Isaiah Thomas about the Dream Team stuff to this day, more so than even Michael Jordan. So I'm kind of sensing a trend here with Scottie that you want to talk about holding grudges. Michael Jordan holding grudges? Scottie Pippen has showed that he holds grudges 30 years to this point. I would do it again when you were completely in the wrong. You were completely in the wrong. Bill Cartwright is crying in the locker room after a playoff win. Are you kidding me? Because you let the team down and you still wouldn't change your mind. Granted, you backed it up. You went out there and you dunked on Patrick Ewing and you won the team's respect back. But Michael Jordan in 2020 is saying that this is still a stain on his legacy and he's never going to live it down. Everyone's saying he was never going to live it down. And to this day, he still says, let's do it again. So all the perfect storm of his contract, being underpaid, whatever, you name it. There's something that we haven't gotten an explanation yet regarding Scottie because I was not expecting that whatsoever.
No, that was stunning. I made a note of that. I'm like, what? Did he just say he would do it again? Like the most unbelievably sour moment of your entire career, of a Hall of Fame career. And you're like, oh yeah, that thing where I sat and let down my teammates on national television in a playoff game in the biggest stage where I could have stepped up and I could have been a great teammate. Like it almost makes you feel like he was rooting for Kukoc not to make that shot. Now, Matt Moore, you know, he probably wanted him to get a trophy at the end of the game because he stood his ground and spoke about his feelings. But Matt, go ahead. Tell us what you think.
Oh, we're going down. This is what we're going to be doing now?
I'm kidding.
So, well, I guess I was just about to unleash this hot take. You want to know why Pippen did that? Michael Jordan's why Pippen did that. Jordan put that into him. The idea of, no, I'm not going to stand for anything less than me. It's about me. What about me? I'm the star. Jordan.
Nah, man.
I could buy that he got the grudge holding from Jordan, but that seems a little excessive to me.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say.
No, I'm kidding, kind of. What I will say, though, on this, I will say, though, that I thought actually this tied in with Jordan's thing. Like the parallel is actually really interesting because Jordan talks about punching Kerr. And he was like, I just beat up the littlest guy on the team. And I felt this small. And I was like, all right, like, that's really cool. Like, this is a moment of introspection and like reality. And I think that's one of the differentials. And like, that's a difference in who they are as people, right? Is like, I do think that there's a certain amount with him saying I would probably do it again. When you win, this has just been my experience with players. When they win, they start to feel like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter what the criticisms were or what I could have done. Like I got where I am. I'm a 6-time champion. I'm Scottie Pippen. I am a top 50 player of all time, probably much higher than that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, everything I did is justified because I won. And like, we saw the same kind of program with Jordan, but Jordan at least had that moment of just being like, oh man, like, what am I doing? Like, that was like the one moment where he pushed through, which is why I don't think we need to use it as like, Jordan was such an asshole that he punched Kerr and that's what made them great, or whatever fans said. Like, no, like,
that's what made them closer. That's exactly what Steve Kerr. So you know more about the relationship than Steve Kerr does. Is that what you're saying, Matt Moore?
Admitted, like, I went too far. Like, I went too far. Right? There's something to say for the fact that Jordan had a retrospect of that moment of saying that was not okay. Like, what I did was not okay. And I don't know what would cause, like, Pippen's entire stance has been really weird. It's been like, some of his quotes about the modern era about LeBron versus Jordan have been inconsistent. Like, there's a lot of complicated stuff I feel like that Pippen has never talked about. I kind of want a 10-part documentary on Pippen. Like, that's what I wind up from a lot of this, is like, I want more Scottie Pippen in my life.
Dude, Scottie Pippen's stock right now looks like a double diamond ski slope compared to the first couple episodes. I don't ever want to hear again that someone like feels bad for Scottie Pippen because of the way that this dynasty on the Bulls played out. I between the two examples we just named, plus him waiting to get surgery before the 98 season, and that pissed off Jordan too. Like, dude, come on. I understand your reasoning for doing it, but you're leaving me out to dry. Like, you couldn't have done that for me as a teammate. There are multiple examples now of Scottie Pippen letting his emotions get the best of him. And is there like some, do you give some credit for saying, you know what, I messed up? It sounds like in this forum that we're discussing, hearing Michael Jordan say, I shouldn't have done that to Steve Kerr was, you know what, that's a step in the right direction. Well, Scottie Pippen isn't doing any of that. But on the contrary, he did go out and perform, right? If you're going to back up your action, or you're going to back it up with actions instead of words, some people would put more value into that. Granted, they ended up losing the series. We didn't get to see anything until practically the following season. So if you can't back it up with actions other than just dunking on Patrick Ewing, then at some point you have to, you know what, I'm just like, I can't get to the middle with him yet.
How much of it was that Phil drew up the play for Kukoc? Krause's guy.
I would say 65% of the anger. And also because Jordan's not there, I'm the guy. But that's contradictory to what he said, because when Jordan left, Scottie Pippen said we were all about team basketball. We're about sharing the ball. And that's why we completely changed our system up here. So he shouldn't be, by him thinking I'm the guy, that would be contradicting himself and just making himself look like an asshole. Okay? That's why I can't get to the middle with him, because he's not showing me, and he's at one end of the spectrum or the other.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he is completely in conflict with himself, and he wants to be the guy who is an unselfish basketball player who thinks about everybody else and gets everybody involved. But he also has this little percentage of himself that is dying to be on the same plane as Michael Jordan. And he just isn't there because of sort of the way he approaches the game, because of his mentality. Like, he is just not going to be that guy, but there are elements that are constantly trying to sneak out. And that's, I think, the manifestation is being stubborn. The manifestation is saying, I want to be the guy. The manifestation is sort of the way he handles himself once he leaves the Bulls. It's all these things that wrap themselves up in trying to say, I'm number one, when in fact, you weren't number one, not because you're not maybe even a top 20 player in the history of the NBA. It's because you were playing next to the greatest player in the history of the NBA. That is an impossible place to be if you are trying to constantly compare yourself to that.
So I just want to ask this question to Scottie Pippen. He's not here to answer, but what did you want? Did you just want a new contract and all would have been well? Did you want people to say you're as good as Michael Jordan? I don't know the answers to those questions, but clearly we need answers, because everything is left unexplained regarding him. At least to me, there's 10 years of evidence here of just inexplicable things that he still to this day says he won't go back and change. I just don't get it. I would like him to answer that question.
We got two more things I want to touch on before we go. One, very quickly, what will be the most iconic meme out of this show? Will it be Jordan holding the bat and smoking a cigar, or will it be Jordan laughing at Gary Payton?
Yes. Jordan laughing at Gary Payton. Easily.
you'll see him looking at that iPad with the eyes bulging and the giggle is coming. You'll be seeing that in comments to tweets for the next 6 months.
We had that moment last week, and then he just upped it with the laugh on top of it this week.
The laugh is what sealed it for me. The laugh is what sort of turned him into, like, from tyrant whose competitive spirit I appreciate and love and remember, to, oh my God, this guy is evil and I love every single second of it. And I think it's amazing.
That was such a brutal moment for Gary Payton. We've known him throughout his career as the ultimate trash talker.
Yes.
Even more than Kevin Garnett. The Glove is known the guy for it. And he's like, my defense, because he was defensive player of the year. I'm known as the Glove because I'm the best defender of all time. And you get laughed at to your face on the screen. You got laughed at. Like everything, all of these words that you said throughout time just went like poof, like Thanos just snapped with an infinity gauntlet to me.
Yeah, that was amazing. All right, the last thing. Hold on. Matt Moore, you want to say one thing? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm still on. I'm just gonna say I'm still on Team Glove because all of the writers were tweeting during that, and they were like, "Yeah, no, he gave Jordan problems." Like everyone knows, like he gave Jordan problems. It's fine to try and rewrite the narrative in your own documentary. Congratulations on that, but like that was definitely a problem. The other thing I did want to note: so George Karl didn't want Peyton on him because he didn't want to wear him down. He wanted his energy up for offense. So Peyton switches on to him. The Bulls only scored 86 in that game 6. Yeah, the Sonics scored 75. They didn't have enough offense.
All right. Here's what I love about Matt Moore. He has been the beacon of truth and the alternative side throughout our post-game shows. Don't give me that look, Wob. Look, he is the one. He is defending Jerry Krause to the end. He is coming in on Gary Payton. He is coming in on George Karl. Wob, why are you making that face?
I mean, you make him sound like the second coming of. Is he the judge and jury here?
Maybe he's our capital J. He's the capital J of our group. I don't know what to tell you. Fan, what are you going to say?
You're giving him way too much credit, honestly.
Maybe you're right.
Though I will side with him on GP. The numbers 100% back it up. Like if you look at his splits when he was not guarded by Gary Payton in that series and guarded by Gary Payton, they're starkly different. Like he averaged 31 points per game, not guarded by GP. 23 guarded by GP, and then like the shooting percentage is all down, like everything's down. Like so we can have this fantastic meme that of Jordan laughing at it and just totally roasting GP, but it's built on a throne of lie. And like it's not based on fact. Like you have the actual numbers, you have the actual proof that it wasn't true.
Okay, it was the second biggest lie tonight, by the way, because if I have to see one more time that Jordan didn't have his playoff legs against the Orlando Magic, they were pushing that narrative hard. They were bringing in players, coaches, writers, everyone to say Jordan was tired. Jordan was still at his baseball body. Get the hell out of here, averaging 32 points. You're tired all of a sudden. You know who's tired? LeBron James playing 50 minutes a game with Jamario Moon as his second best player. Get out of here.
All right, last story. Oh, go ahead, Fan. Go ahead.
I love the Magic and Sonic tie-ins, the jerseys. Those are awesome. And then seeing that Magic team with Penny, Shaq, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, Horace Grant, that was awesome too. I just, as a basketball nerd, I love that they threw those two teams in.
Those Sonics jerseys, those Sonics warm-ups are such studies in contrast and horribleness. It's absolutely insane. Like you look at those things and you're like, how could they have ever gone away from their classic yellow and green jerseys? Oh, look at Wob. Wob is such a child of like.
I love him.
Oh,
I love the cartoon logo.
All right. Andrea Kramer asked the most important question, or made the most important statement in this show. When Jordan retired, it was a moment that you will never forget. Of course, I'm watching this with my 13-year-old, and he's like, Dad, do you know exactly where you were when Michael Jordan retired? So, of course, I know exactly where I was, which I will share. But Fan, you can't answer this question because you were 4. Matt Moore, you get to go first.
So I'm trying to remember where I was exactly. I know that I was home because it was the summer. I was 11. The big thing that I remember from that entire sequence was being really excited because I was like, somebody else is going to fill the void. Like somebody else gets to win now. This is going to be amazing. Like somebody else gets to win. And I was like Shaq and Penny are going to win like 6 titles. This is going to be awesome. Like I was super excited about the new NBA without Jordan, because like that's what I loved. All of those teams. I loved Robinson's Spurs, and I loved Akeem's Rockets, and I loved the Sonics with Peyton and Kemp. I loved all of those teams. And so when Jordan retired, I'm not sure Kemp was in the league at that point, but when Jordan retired, that's when I really started getting into the NBA, because I was like, oh, this is like a wide open new universe. I'm really excited for this.
Wow.
So I was 6.5. I can't remember the specific, if I was like out at a bar or something, like you probably were. But I can remember the feeling in the moment, very similar to Matt, just being the 90s Knicks being my lifeline, being my blood. I'm like, oh my God, we might make the finals. Like, that was it. I didn't even care. I'm like, there's no asterisks because Jordan's not in the league. At that moment, I knew we were going to the NBA finals. Couldn't have been more excited. And it's a great player leaving, and you're like, don't you want to beat them at their best? Hell no. Hell no. I will take W's by any means possible. I just remember that feeling of, oh my God, this is what the Knicks finally need.
Bob, I want to have your thought on this. Is the bigger overall L in the last dance so far the Knicks or Scott Burrell?
It's not the Knicks, because we beat them in 94. At least we got a W out of it.
Okay.
Scott Burrell was only there for 1 year too. So I'll give it to Scott, but it would have been the Knicks if we didn't win in 94.
All right. I was having lunch, or I was in a meeting, was doing something with Joe Paterno. I was on my very first assignment for Sports Illustrated. I had started at SI out of college in July of 1993. And we went into the football season started. Penn State had a running back named Brian Milne, who had overcome cancer. And I pitched a story about him for Sports Illustrated, like a small college football note. And I went up to State College and was meeting with Joe Paterno. We were having lunch at the Nittany Lion Inn. He ordered a Cobb salad, and the waitress said to him, "Coach, you know you're not allowed to have the bacon." And then she brought him the salad with no bacon. And later that day, after I was done with the interviews, I'm driving back, and that's when the rumors are starting about Michael Jordan, because it was at Comiskey. Like, I was listening to the game on the rate, like driving back my rental car from State College to New York City. So my day started with Joe Paterno and ended with Michael Jordan retiring.
That's almost up there with June 7th, 1994, whatever. What was the date?
Yeah.
Like the finals game and the OJ and the ticker tape parade. That's your own personal.
That's my own personal June 17th, 1994.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, boys. Great show. Another great series, couple of episodes from The Last Dance. We got two more left. And I'm so sad. I might just start watching them again and then just slacking Matt Moore, all the reasons why Michael Jordan is amazing. Until next week, for Matt Moore, for Justin Fan, for Worldwide Wob, I'm Chad Millman. Thanks, fellas.